It's time for Voice of Indie. Your hosts today are Beem Weeks, author, producer, and marketing monster for independent multimedia publisher Fresh Ink Group, and Stephen Gies, author, producer, composer, and publisher for Fresh Ink Group.
Something a little different tonight, episode 73. We are doing our favorite movies. So we're going to break down some of these movies, not too in-depth because we got a whole bunch of them here, but I am your host, Beem Weeks, and with his co-host, Mr. Stephen Gies. How are you doing tonight, Stephen?
I'm doing pretty well, but you need to be alerted that you are breaking up.
Am I breaking up? Is it that bad?
Yeah, wiggle your cord around or do something, but you broke up
there's
about
no
five
wiggling the
times
cord.
there.
It's obviously internet connection or something tonight. So
something. All right. Well, you may need to call in if it gets bad. But Merry Christmas, everybody. This is our holiday show. We're not having a guest tonight so that we can just riff off each other, which we like to do from time to time. My hands are improving. Those of you who have been following along, I've got a couple of badly fractured hands, but they're getting stronger. They're getting better. They're healing. I'm down to a couple more weeks till the pins come out of my right hand, and I'm feeling good about it. I can wiggle some fingers on both hands, so I'm getting some work done, but 10, 15 minutes, and then my hands start hurting, so I got to take a half-hour break. But I'm ready to go tonight. I'm ready to talk about some movies. You ready to talk about some movies, Beem?
I'm ready to talk about movies. If this keeps breaking up, I've got my phone call, so...
Okay. You want to go ahead and tell people how to participate?
Yeah, if you want to participate in tonight's show, if you've got a favorite movie that you want to talk about, or a couple of favorite movies, just give us a call right this way.
Or you can tell us what you think of ours.
Call 516-453-9902 right now and join us on air. Or tweet us with the hashtag Fresh Ink Group in the body, and we'll read your comment or question live. That's 516-453-9902 or hashtag Fresh Ink Group.
Yeah,
all right.
We've got a couple of comments on Twitter already. Verwayne Greenhouse says he wanted to be active in tonight's discussion, but he drove 22 hours yesterday and he's still quite loopy. Now, Greenhoe, loopy fits right in around here. And you see Marlena's comment, Beem?
I do. She said this week the fellas are talking movies on the Voice of Indie podcast. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
All right. So how's this? Is it still breaking up?
I heard one little glitch there, but it's pretty good.
All right. If it continues to do that, let me know, and I'll just switch over to the phone.
Okay. So
we'll
anyway, people, this turned out to be kind of a complicated thing. For one thing, I wanted to do a lot of prep work. I want to do some little roll-ins with some soundtrack music and whatnot. But with these hands, I was happy to settle for just typing out a list. But one of the things that we had to talk about when putting together this show is, what is our criteria? I mean, favorite's kind of a broad term. And, I started making lists and started making a list of movies I've been wanting to see and haven't seen yet. which wound up on its own. I started looking at different actors that are some of my favorite actors. And then I started looking at genres. You know, we could do a whole show on comedy movies. There's a rich history. You go back to before the Marx Brothers even, and whole segments where people did leaps ahead. Mel Brooks movies. Jim Abrahams, David and Jerry Zucker. When they came out with Airplane, that wasn't their first movie, but they did a whole series of movies there that were all hilarious, big hits. Then you had the National Lampoon era. And then you get into the comedian era, like Steve Martin, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, and Parenthood. Now you're starting to get into some movies with meaning. You had your Saturday Night Live people, different star vehicles like We're the Millers. But then you get into literary comedy like Fargo or Alexander Payne's Nebraska. Those things, they're not on my list tonight, but they need to be on a list, so I just had to mention them. We also talked about foreign movies, and I think Beem wound up with one on his. I don't think I put any on mine, but I could make a foreign list. I'm a big fan of Francois Truffaut.
And this, we talked about this being a movie show and movie episode. We're going to have to do a sequel, possibly.
Yeah, or several sequels. And you did break up once or twice when you said that. All right. Louis Malle, for example, he's known for Pretty Baby, but Murmur of the Heart, that's a great film. And then I think my favorite film, I'm just going to mention it just because I'm on the subject, is Madame Rosa, starring the great Simone Signoret. And if you're not hip to that movie, get out there and look it up. It's a masterpiece. But then, I think about people in our audience like Robert G. Williscroft, who's a great science fiction writer. I love science fiction, but I have most of my life been disappointed with the science fiction movies that come out. Recently, Arrival with Amy Adams, Dune. I think Dune was finally done right. But then, you kicked off with Stanley Kubrick doing 2001. You got Abrams doing stuff now like Super 8. You had Spielberg's in there strong with science fiction. I know Beem has a Spielberg on his list. Mine would be AI, Artificial Intelligence, which was a Stanley Kubrick film, but he died and Steven Spielberg finished it for him. But I got to say, Heinlein is my all-time favorite science fiction writer, right up there with Robert G. Williscroft. But I haven't seen a Heinlein movie yet that I thought was worth anything, and that's kind of disappointing to me. Animations. We could do a list of animation movies. I got hooked at the age of 5 watching Fantasia in the theater and thinking, wow, who made this? This is cool. You got whole genres like gangster films. I know that's a good one for Beem. Not so much for me. Some that would be on his list wouldn't make mine. Maybe some the other way around. Like I like Danny DeVito's Hoffa. I thought Hoffa was one of the best
Hoffa was a good
movies
movie.
ever. Yeah.
It was an excellent movie.
But we could do mysteries, we could do thrillers, we could do horrors. Think of all the great westerns that have been done. And then there's franchises like James Bond. James Bond movies are always good because it's a whole lot of money and a whole lot of smart people get in there and make them. But they're usually not my favorite movies because they don't really say anything. They're just Rip Snorton stories that they go through and do the whole thing. And then
Daniel
you get into
Craig.
the ones that are, Daniel Craig. But you get into the stylized kinds of violent movies like Smokin' Aces. I'm there. I've
got that on DVD. Great film.
Yeah. Oh man, If you're not hip to Smokin' Aces, get out there and check it out. But anyway,
I want to put this in here, talking about the Bond movies not really saying anything. The Daniel Craig ones do. You're dealing with PTSD. You're dealing with suicidal actions.
Yeah.
Because he's gone through a lot. I think it's more realistic. Connery used to be my favorite Bond until seeing Daniel Craig, because you're in real life, you're not going to go in. You've got a license to kill. You're going to go kill somebody, then you're going to get a martini and a girl and go up. No, you're going to have to deal with the fact that you ended somebody. And anybody with a conscience is going to deal with it the way Daniel Craig's Bond dealt with it, where he's an alcoholic, he's suicidal, he's definitely got PTSD. So
yeah, okay, and you are still breaking up.
All right, I'm going to make a quick switch here to my phone. So I'm going to shut my mic off.
All right, well, he does that. What it came down to me when I was trying to decide what are my criteria, the big one is meaning. I like for a movie to say something. I like to look at the story and the screenplay. Ever since I was a little kid, I was the kind of person who always wanted to know how things are made. How is music composed? How is it produced? How are movies shot? How are things put together? So I'm looking at all of those. Acting, of course, is a major one. The directing. I'm really big on cinematography, film techniques, and I'm real big on soundtracks. I like a soundtrack in a movie that really, really is intense, incredible, adds to the flavor and feeling of the whole movie. But what I finally came down to is, what stays with me, and probably 3 basic criteria. Number 1, is it a movie that I have watched over and over and over and would again? If a friend comes over and says, hey, let's watch a movie, what do you recommend? Anything that's on my list tonight, I would happily watch it again, even though I know every line by heart. The second one,
I've got a bunch of those.
Yep. The second one would be, what is a movie I would like to introduce to other people? Which is a little bit of our motivation for this show tonight. And probably, finally, my third one is, what's a movie that I could discuss with my good friend Beem Weeks and have a great conversation, and we would both understand what we're talking about and why we like it, and we would both get excited hearing the other describe it. And that's a lot of fun for me, too. So that's my criteria. I think Beem just threw darts at a board, but who knows?
No, my criteria is basically, it's those kind of movies. How does this sound, by the way? I'm on my phone now.
Good.
Okay. I'm guessing we've had some high winds, so it probably has to do with the internet, because there's nothing different about my computer and the setup. Although I may have to look to invest in a new microphone. Who knows? I got a little cheapy, but it's a good one. Anyway, my criteria was just basically these kind of movies that, like you, I've seen, numerous times, and I'll watch them every time they come on TV. There's the first couple of them that I'm going to touch on here. I've seen probably close to 100 times each, if not more. But these are movies that have left some kind of a mark on me. Hey, it made me laugh, or it touched me emotionally, whatever. It's just left some kind of a mark on me in some way. Whether it might even be like a line. There was just this great line in there. But each of these movies, to me, they're well written. It starts with a well-written script. The story has to be there. As you talked about, there's no substance to a lot of those Bond movies. I'd like to think that most of these movies I got on here have substance. There's a couple that were fun movies, but most of them have substance, and that's what I was looking at. That substance that sticks with me like a good book. And some of these I've read as books as well. So that's my criteria.
Cool. Well, I've got 20 on my list, plus a couple dozen also Rands, and I think you have 25. Is that right?
Yeah, and probably 40 dozen.
Right.
40 are also Rand.
I kind of tried to put mine in order, like what would be number 1, number 2, number 3, and that kind of fell apart too. So they're kind of sort of roughly in order, but I'm not going to quibble over if this one's better than that one or whatever. So that's
my top 5. That mine is the top 5. These are my 5 favorite movies, and then from there, the rest of them, they're no particular order.
Okay, well, why don't you start?
Okay, for me, one of the movies that I've seen at number 1, my all-time favorite movie that I've seen probably over 100 times. I've got it on DVD. I had it on VHS when it first came out back in the 90s.
I'll bet I know what it is.
And that is Pulp Fiction.
I scored.
I'm a big Quentin Tarantino movie. Came out in 1994. The lives of 2 mob hitmen, a boxer, a gangster and his wife, and a pair of diner bandits intertwined in 4 tales of violence and redemption. And that's what it is. I mean, there's several of the scenes, 2 or 3 different times, but they're played from different perceptions. They're played from different points of view. So it opens in this diner, and it closes in the same diner, but it's the same scene. And then you get what led him to that diner in between. And it's John Travolta, it's Samuel L. Jackson, it's Harvey Keitel, Quentin Tarantino at his greatest, in my opinion. He's done some really good stuff since then, but he hasn't topped this one. So for me, Pulp Fiction, it's just a great film.
I'm a fan of Pulp Fiction. It didn't make my list, but I agree. It is a great film, and it certainly embodies Tarantino at his most stylistically best. No question about it. Okay, my number 1, also a gangster flick. This was directed by one of my all-time favorite directors, Sam Mendes, and it stars Tom Hanks, Paul Newman, Daniel Craig, and Jude Law. Man, Jude Law gives a performance in that too. And it's called Road to Perdition. Road to Perdition was originally a graphic novel, and it was made into a movie, and it's, wow. Here's its tagline. A mob enforcer's son in 1930s Illinois witnesses a murder, forcing him and his father to take to the road and his father down a path of redemption and revenge. And that's Tom Hanks playing the father in a very unusual role for him. He's cast as a bad guy, a killer, a mob enforcer, the one that when his boss Paul Newman sends him out to rough people up or kill them, he does it. But his 12-year-old son hides in the back of the car and witnesses one of these murders one time, and that leads to Daniel Craig killing Tom Hanks' wife and other son and sends Tom Hanks on the road. So he's a bad guy, but he needs to find some redemption by the end of the movie. And it's a gorgeous film. It's stylish. It's beautifully shot. The acting is phenomenal, and it is probably my top 3 all-time favorite movie soundtracks, the original music that was done for it. I'd love to roll in a little piece of it for you now, but get out there and check it out. I'm sure it's on places like YouTube where you could sample it. Road to Perdition, music soundtrack. It did win the Best Cinematography Oscar that year. So, again, it's a gorgeous movie. It's full of heart. It's got twists and surprises. And, man, Jude Law is a photographer who's brought in to film like murder scenes, shoot different murder scenes and whatnot. But he kind of likes it more than he should, so he helps stage them. You know, if the guy he's getting a shot of isn't quite dead yet, he's glad to help him along. He's a character. But Road to Perdition, probably my all-time favorite movie. If I see it coming on, I'm stuck because I can't do anything else till it's over.
I've got that on my list too, so I might as well throw in my 2 cents here. You're correct. Jude Law was phenomenal in that, and he was actually I don't want to give too much away, but he was kind of a hitman himself. You're talking about staging these crime scene photographs. Yeah, I mean that was some dirty work, and he was kind of the evil character himself, but he was so nonchalant about it. If you met him in a diner, you'd be like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" Something along those lines. Came out in 2002. You're right. I mean, the cinematography is just beautiful in this movie. It's got that real vibe, that real 1930s vibe. The whole look, it looks like it could be lifted out there. And when you're watching Tom Hanks in this role, you're not thinking Tom Hanks.
No.
I mean, this is just a completely different role, as you stated, for him here, because he's a bad guy, but he's a family guy, and he's a loyal guy. And the guy that he was loyal to is the one that kind of caused all of this. And, well, his son did, but, now he's going to cover for the son, and it leads to the showdown that needs to happen. Before we move on, I want to throw out here, we got something on Twitter here from Joan Hall. She said she's joining in tonight, looking forward to hearing your favorite movies. Well, welcome aboard, Joan. We are
hey, Joan. Good to see you out there. We got Marlena Smith, too.
Go ahead. You take the Marlena one.
She says, I adore Jude Law. He's such a talented actor, from holiday romance to the world of wizardry. Yeah, I'm a Jude Law fan, definitely. But, the one thing we haven't emphasized yet on Road to Perdition is Paul Newman. It's one of the last films that he made, and Paul Newman has his resume of acting performances is stellar, and yet I still think this is as good as he's ever been in a movie, Road to Perdition.
He received a Best Supporting Actor nomination at the Oscars that year, and he did a handful of movies after this one. I was thinking this was his last, but I see he did all those Cars movies, and there was a couple of other ones. He did Empire Falls. Yeah, he did Empire Falls after this as well. But, yeah, you're right. I think this was some of his best work, and this guy had a stellar career dating back to the 1950s. And this is 50-odd years later, and he was at the top of his game.
All right, people, we're looking for callers. Call in, tell us what your favorite movie is, or criticize our choices, and just see what's going on.
516-453-9902, and you can be part of this. My next movie is another one of those movies that I've seen probably, and this is my legit number 2. Like I said, the first 5 are going to be my legit top 5 favorite movies. But this my second one is another one that I've seen well over 100 times, and I'm like you. If it's on TV, I've got to stop and watch it, and I'm going to be watching it until it's done, even though I've got it on DVD.
Yep.
That is Goodfellas. Martin Scorsese's 1990 masterpiece, and it's based on gangster Henry Hill's biography, Wise Guys. I say biography because he didn't write it himself. He told the story to another guy, and the guy wrote it for him. Now, the movie is the story of Henry Hill and his life in the mob, covering his relationship with his wife Karen Hill and his mob partners Jimmy Conway and Tommy DeVito in the Italian-American crime syndicate. Now, some of those names were changed. Conway isn't the last name of Jimmy, and I'm forgetting what it was, but Tommy DeVito was actually Tommy DeSimone. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. In the movie, Joe Pesci, who's like, 5'4", I mean, he's more like Danny DeVito. He's a small guy, but he played that role so well. And I'm believing he got an Oscar nomination for that role. But in real life, Tommy DeSimone, the guy he's playing with, like 6'5", he was huge. He was an intimidating character. And that's a good sign of the acting job that Pesci did, because he played this big guy, personality-wise, smacking people around. But it's a stylish gangster film that's based in truth. Now, yeah, they took some liberties and changed some things around, but you're hearing the actual story of what went down in the 70s. Actually, starts in the 50s to when Henry Hill was a little kid. He was half Irish, half Italian, so he could never be a made man, but he got in with the right people, and then he got in with the wrong people, and they were going to whack him, and then started ratting people out, and he went to prison for it. And then he didn't go to prison for long. They moved him into the secret witness program. He put a lot of people in prison. So it's a reality look at early John Gotti in the 70s. I mean, his crew was the one that whacked Tommy DeSimone, but allegedly.
Yeah. Can you imagine if the producers had fired Tarantino and brought in a different director? There's no way anybody else could have made that movie. No way.
Scorsese. That was Scorsese.
Scorsese, I meant, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's suited exactly to his Mean Streets style, that he developed so much in this movie, Mean Streets, and then he developed that style into that gangster genre and did it like nobody else did. Now, I accidentally said Tarantino because he's another one who has such a particular style that every one of his movies could not have been done by somebody else. I was thinking of both of them when I said that and said the wrong name.
Now, we do have a caller. You want to take
All
the
right.
call?
Yeah.
All right. Hello, caller. You are on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi there, Beem. Hi, Steve. This is Beem Johnson from Huntsville.
Right.
How you doing?
Hi there.
All right. Welcome to the show.
And thank you for the lovely notes, Ms. Johnson, about my hands and getting better and everything. It's nice to receive those. It means a lot.
I am so glad you are better.
Yeah. Not there yet, but getting there.
Oh, good. Oh, movies. I love movies. I love old movies. My very favorite movie is Witness for the Prosecution. I will stop whatever I'm doing to watch that movie. So that's one, as well as Casablanca.
Yeah.
I've watched Casablanca a lot of times. Whenever it comes on, it can be late at night, first thing in the morning, midday. I stop whatever I'm doing to watch that movie. I just love it.
Great choices. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
You got a third one you can throw out?
Yeah, The Magnificent Seven. I love that movie. Now, that one I'll watch every time, too. Every time it comes on, I'll watch it. I love the soundtrack alone. Yep. The acting is great. The characters are great. So I love Magnificent Seven. I love it. I watch it every time it comes on.
I once watched the original Japanese movie that was made from, and they were both.
Yeah.
Now, I prefer the one with Yul Brynner. I don't like the new one that just came out where Denzel Washington is part of the cast. I think he takes the role of the leader like Yul Brynner, but I prefer the old one.
I liked the new one with Denzel, but you're right. The original was one that did not need to be improved upon.
Absolutely. And as far as animated movies, Charlie Brown is way up there. He's number one on my list. I will watch Charlie Brown Christmas every year. I have the movie. I have the soundtrack. I love it. So that's my animated movie favorite.
Cool. Well, thanks for calling in, Ms. Johnson. That was terrific additions.
Yeah, good to hear from you. Glad you're doing well. Y'all have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Callers, we're looking for opinions.
Yeah, we got another caller, so if you want to.
All right. Go for it.
You want to do your next one, and then we can take the caller.
I'll do that. My next one is my number 2 movie, and I think this is a solid number 2. And this one surprises people because most people I mentioned this to haven't seen it. The Last Emperor. Now that was directed. On my list too. Is it? It was directed by Bernardo Bertolucci. Stars John Lone and Peter O'Toole. Was made in 1987. Here's the tagline: The story of the final emperor of China. The film depicts Pu Yi's life from his ascent to the throne as a small boy to his imprisonment and political rehabilitation by the Communist Party of China. O'Toole is the British tutor brought in to help Pu Yi learn Western knowledge and ways. Now, this movie swept the Oscars. You look it up, and it won like every category that year. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Writer. I mean, all the categories. It was the big hit of the year in 1987. So I'm always surprised when people say, The Last Emperor? I've never heard of that. I'm telling you, this movie is epic. It was the first time and one of the last times that China allowed a Western film crew to shoot a movie in the Forbidden City. So all of these scenes are authentic. All of the stuff that's happening, you're actually seeing the Chinese soldiers and all the eunuchs and things like that in the actual throne room and the different settings that happen. And it's authentic. It's based on the true story of Pu Yi. Now, I'm sure they took some liberties, especially around the Peter O'Toole character, but this movie is just sweeping. It just covers, 70, 80 years or whatever. And it's very poignant, heartbreaking at times. Sometimes it gets intense. And then it's one of those movies that when it comes down to the end, it's just a wonderful, satisfying story. And then you get down to the last scene and you see Pu Yi, and he's an old man who's been assigned the job of cleaning toilets, cleaning bathrooms. And he gets an opportunity, travels to the Forbidden City, and takes the tour of the palace where he used to be the emperor. And at the very end, as it's over, one last little thing happens that'll make you smile. And I want you to go see the movie so you can find out what that is.
Yeah, I love this movie, and it's another one with the beautiful cinematography.
Wow.
I mean, just gorgeous. It's just rich, warm photography. Great soundtrack. And the thing that struck me about why it made my list, it's here on my list as well, that the thing that touched me about that was that this is a guy who, from birth, was an emperor. He was born into the royal family. The lineage that I couldn't tell you how far back it went, but it went back far. And then one day, for them to come and tell him after the communists take over, you're nobody. Get out of here.
Yeah, emperors were virtually deities to the people.
It was, they had people that basically chose their clothes for them, that, made their meals. They were waited on hand and foot, and then, they made decisions that impacted the whole country. And then suddenly one day he's told, you're nobody, get out of here. You better get out of the country because these communists might want to kill you.
Yeah.
And so he ends up in Japan for a while, and he travels around and whatnot. But, that last scene is what ties it all back.
Yeah, that one last emphasis on that soundtrack, too. If I were listing just soundtracks, that would probably be my number one. I went out and bought the album. I would listen to the album of just the soundtrack of that movie over and over. It was so sweeping and beautiful.
Yes, excellent movie.
So we got a caller, huh?
Oh, well, he just dropped off. Caller, call back.
Yeah.
I was just going to click on your button and you jumped off. So call back.
No. Okay, then
all right,
jump to your next movie.
My next movie is it's another, not really gangster. It's kind of gangsterish. It's Cormac McCarthy's No Country for Old Men. This is my legit number 3 favorite movie, 2007. It's based on the 2005 novel by Cormac McCarthy. Violence and mayhem ensue after a hunter stumbles upon a drug deal gone wrong and more than $2 million in cash. He finds $2 million in cash near the Rio Grande. This movie, I didn't know what to think about it when I first started watching it. It was on TV one night, and I thought, all right, let me check this out. I had heard about it, and everybody was talking about it. Yeah, it's good. Tommy Lee Jones is in it. He's a great actor. Big fan of Tommy Lee Jones. Javier Bardem, I knew him from some of his Spanish films. He's a Spanish actor from Spain, and I love foreign films. I've seen him in a couple of those. He speaks English in this one, and Josh Brolin. And it was just a well-written, well-acted movie that follows mayhem. And when you hear mayhem, the character of Javier Bardem, his name was Anton Chigurh, and he was insane. He was a crazy man, but not, where he's all over the place crazy. He was calm and collected and thinking crazy. And this guy had these crazy ideas that, look, I'm going to flip a coin. You choose, heads or tails. If it's heads, you get to live. If it's tails, I'm going to whack you. And, he had a method to his madness, but that's how he decided some things. And I remember there's this one scene in the gas station where the old guy running it, he flipped it, and he happened to get heads. So he got to live. And he has no idea, that, dude, you were about ready to get whacked just because this guy feels like whacking somebody. But this movie, it had one of those endings where the good guys don't. There are really no good guys in this.
No.
Okay, this movie, there's not.
There are.
But the semi-good guy, Josh Brolin, the good guy, semi-good guy doesn't win. The good guy, the cop, what's his name? Anyway, Jones, Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy G, yeah.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones. He's the cop. He's actually probably more closer to the good guy. But, even he's got, things going on. But he's not a crooked cop by any means. He just sees things and he's like, I got to get out of this business. But the good guy, semi-good guy, they don't win. It's the bad guy that walks away scot-free in this one.
Yeah, that movie made my also ran list. It didn't quite get up into my top 20, but it's a great movie. I certainly concur with that. Over on Twitter, Joan Hall adds, I love Goodfellas. IMO much better than the Godfather movies. And then she adds, my all-time favorite is Casablanca. The character arc of Rick Blaine is like no other. Yeah,
I've seen Casablanca a few times, and that's another one that,
it is.
I don't have, Marlena Smith says, I love Charlie Brown.
Great.
I don't have Turner Classic Movie anymore, but when I had it, anytime Casablanca came on, it was one that I would watch. Okay, we do have our caller back, so let's go ahead and grab this call. Right. Hello, caller. You are on the air. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Are you talking to me, Dr. Helen?
Yeah,
I'm
Dr.
Helen. Dr. Helen. Welcome
okay, let me tell you what the problem is. It's entirely different what's coming across my TV than what I'm listening to here. It's strange, but I can't turn it off while I'm talking. But look,
turn off the TV.
You guys
and
have
just
to
listen
know
to your
that
phone.
Twitter has cut me off for 7 days because I wrote something about COVID and Fauci. So I hope you guys will tweet me a lot, right?
Yeah, we'll get out there.
I can only send direct DMs.
All right.
But what happens is when you call here, I call you, it's entirely different what's coming across my TV.
You need to listen
than
to
what
your
I'm
phone.
Hearing.
Listen to your phone and turn off the TV or whatever other source you have.
I don't know how to turn it off?
Turn it off. You can hear the show through the phone.
It's delayed, I see.
So, Helen, do you have any favorite movies?
I turned it off.
Do you have any favorite
movies?
Do you have
a favorite movie?
What?
Do you have any favorite movies you can name?
Oh, my goodness, sure, a lot.
Name one.
Oh, goodness. Well, there was one with Gregory Peck where he plays that lawyer. But a lot of ones with Gregory Peck.
To Kill a Mockingbird?
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
Mockingbird.
That's on my list.
But there's a great one, but I think it was only on TV with a British actor where he plays a schizophrenic. It's very funny. The Ruling Class, I think it's called. It's extremely well done. So there are many, many great movies. I haven't seen movies lately, but many great movies. I think in the 40s and 50s there were better movies, don't you think?
No, I can't agree with that.
There was a lot of good ones.
There was a lot of good ones, but there's also a lot of great ones coming out now.
Yeah, we got a lot of great fine
What are your favorites?
You're going to hear it through the rest of the show, Helen.
That's what we're talking about.
Thanks for calling in. And
Helen, but listen, remember, you're going to DM me, right? Because otherwise I can't get any tweets, right. Okay?
Okay, and Helen, remember...
And retweet your own stuff and retweet my own stuff, because for 7 days I can't do it.
Right.
Okay.
Now, remember, when you call in, all listeners, remember this, turn down whatever source you were listening to before, because you can hear the show right through your phone while you're on hold. So thanks again for calling, Helen.
Thanks for calling, Helen.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
So are we up to my next one, Beem?
We are up to your next one.
Okay, this one it won the Picture Academy Award, so it's not an obscure one that nobody's heard of, but again, one of my favorite directors, Sam Mendes. This one stars Kevin Spacey, Annette Bening, Chris Cooper. Man, Chris Cooper, I haven't seen that guy do anything that didn't impress me. Allison Janney, Mina Savari, and Thora Birch. It's a stellar cast. It's named after a rose, American Beauty.
American Beauty, it's on my list.
The tagline is, a sexually frustrated suburban father has a midlife crisis after becoming infatuated with his daughter's best friend. So it's a little bit skeezy in that regard, although, I got to say it doesn't necessarily go very far that direction, but it did win the Best Picture Oscar, and it's a gorgeous, beautiful movie with some of the best writing and best acting performances I've ever seen. Sam Mendes knows how to put together a movie, and what really gets me about this is every time I watch it, it's just, everything about it is a great film, but then when I get down to the ending, I think this one would make one of my lists of the greatest movie endings of all times. And I'm not giving away too much when I tell you that it's an ending in which a character narrates his own death. And the way that's done, the way Sam Mendes puts that together with some montage images and things like that as it's happening, combined with the tension of what just happened, and trying to piece together the clues, it's just, wow, what a way to end a movie. I mean, I always sit there and watch all of the credits because I'm still thinking about that ending. So American Beauty, my highest endorsement, my top 5 easily.
Yeah, that's on my list here too. And the thing about that is, you're talking about he narrates his own death at the end. He's actually dead from the beginning, and he's telling you how he got to that point. And then, like Stephen says, when you get to the point where the actual death occurs, then he's telling you what's going on there.
Yeah, I wasn't going to give that much away, but I don't think it's too much. It
doesn't give that much away. It's still a fantastic movie.
Yep.
It's like he said. I mean, there's some skeezy, ideas there, but it doesn't go into that. This is a guy that's frustrated with. The tagline says he's sexually frustrated, but he's more than that. He hates his job. His wife hates his wife.
His life, resents his daughter.
Hates his
neighbors.
Yeah. I mean, it's Annette Bening, I mean, she's brilliant in that movie as well. So you're right.
Is.
Chris Cooper, man. Chris Cooper, I've never seen a bad flip with Chris Cooper in it.
No, and while we're mentioning Chris Cooper, you know that old Dickens novel, Great Expectations? There's a remake of that. There's dozens of remakes of it, but there's one starring Chris Cooper. And Hawke, what's the boy actor who grew up and was in Training Day with Denzel? Ethan Hawke. And he's in that too. And I like that story. I've liked most of the movies made of it. That one blew me away at how good it was because of Chris Cooper. So just a little throw out for Chris Cooper there.
Cool.
So what else you got?
Before I go on to my next one, Marlena Smith over on Twitter says, I'm a big fan of the Brat Pack movies. I am too, Marlena. I was in my teens and 20s in the 80s when those films came out, and loved a lot of those movies. Saw them at the old drive-in. Drove the car up there and watched the movies at the drive-in theaters. Saw most of the ones you got on here. In fact, I've seen all of them. She says, give me the films of the 80s and I'll be happy. The Breakfast Club, saw it at the theater. The Goonies, Pretty in Pink, saw Pretty in Pink at the theater. And so on. Yeah, I agree. Some great movies from the 80s. A lot of those John, what's his name? John Hughes. John Hughes,
yeah, died young.
John Hughes movies. Yeah, he was actually born here in Lansing, Michigan, up here near me, and moved to Chicago when he was 13. So that's why he set most of his movies in Chicago. I was always hoping that he would do that one where he set it in Lansing, but he never did because he passed away. He was like 50 or 51. He had a heart attack. But he wrote a lot of movies, and then he wrote and directed a lot of movies. And he wrote like Home Alone, Uncle Buck, Pretty in Pink, The Breakfast Club, St. Elmo's Fire. I mean, he did all of these movies, and then he was gone. Now, my next movie is a period piece. It stars the great, the brilliant, one of the greatest living actors today, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Ooh.
And it is called There Will Be Blood.
Oh,
this movie came out in 2007. It's loosely based on the 1927 novel Oil by Upton Sinclair. Daniel Day-Lewis, Paul Dano. Paul Dano's brilliant in this.
Oh, he is.
A story of family, religion, hatred, oil, and madness, focusing on a turn-of-the-century prospector in the early days of the business. This guy's out there prospecting for oil at the late 1800s, early 1900s, and throughout the course of this movie, he finds this orphaned, abandoned kid, little boy, baby, and he basically adopts him and raises him, and this kid's going to take over the business someday. And he starts making a lot of money, and then there's this explosion. Kid loses his hearing. He's defective now because he's deaf, and the father basically doesn't want anything more to do with him. And this is a guy who's teetering on madness all the time. He's got this drive to be the biggest, richest oil guy. This is during the days of Rockefeller, when Rockefeller was first building his fortune. And they were competing, and this guy had this drive to be the biggest and the best, and he would kill. I mean, literally, he would kill anybody that got into his way. And Daniel Day-Lewis plays this role to a hilt. Daniel Day-Lewis, here's a funny thing about him. He's one of these method actors. We've heard of method actors where they get into the character, and when the director yells cut, they stay in character. Brando and James Dean started this back in the 50s. Daniel Day-Lewis, he doesn't just stay in character when he's on set. He takes the character home with him. And his wife talks about how he'll come home and whatever that character is, that's who he is. And he stays that character through the filming of the movie. And she told a story about one time where his best friend had called and knew that Daniel Day-Lewis had started a new movie. So the best friend called, the wife answered the phone, and he said, well, who will I be talking with tonight when I talk to you? And she has to fill him in on it. And, this character, I mean, he talks like this, and he tells this guy, matter-of-factly, I'm going to come into your house tonight, and I'm going to cut your throat while you're asleep, and I'm going to watch you die, and there's nothing you can do about it. And this guy's like, what? Yes, that's right. Now, please, pass me the butter. He's doing over the table. He's had this argument with this guy, and and this guy's trying to soften the argument. Hey, look, I apologize, and he's not having that. But, I mean, he literally talks like that. I'm going to come to your house tonight, and I'm going to cut your throat and watch you bleed. So
yeah, they say when he did My Left Foot that he lived as a cripple that entire time while he was doing that. But when you say him, there's one of his movies that was on my list, kind of dropped off, on, off, and right now it's the highest one that's not on the list, and that's Lincoln.
Lincoln, yeah. Well, I've got one too. So another one, but it's on my other list here. It'll be in the sequel. Lincoln.
So we could talk Daniel Day-Lewis all day. He's just
a
great actor. Gangs of New York, yeah.
The other one on my other list, but we'll get to the sequel. But anyway, There Will Be Blood. this is a story. It's not a bunch of just violence and all that. Although he is a violent man, it's a snapshot of what did take place back then when you had all of these titans of industry as they were coming up. And these guys backstabbed and did things. I mean, look at Rockefeller with Standard Oil. I mean, you know, he got busted under the Antitrust Act. And what did he do? He just broke up his company into smaller companies and just continued running them that way. Damn the government. They weren't going to stop him. I mean, this is what this movie is. I mean, it's entrenched in that, and it's such a well-filmed movie. And Daniel Day-Lewis, I'm telling you, he's one of the greatest actors today, ever, hands down.
All right, my next one. This is a movie that it's right now I've got it at number 4, and it's probably the one on my list that nobody I've ever talked to about it to has heard of. And it always strikes me as a little odd because it's directed by Danny DeVito. It was the first movie he directed before he did Hoffa. It's called Jack the Bear. And this movie stars Danny DeVito and Gary Sinise in the 2 adult roles. Jack is 12-year-old Robert J. Steinmiller Jr., who only did 3 movies and then had a bit part in a 4th movie, Rudy, and then kind of faded from the acting scene. And that was kind of too bad because this was a kid I was looking forward to seeing what he could do as an adult actor, too. But here's the tagline. Danny DeVito is John Leary, a professional clown whose wife's death in a car accident has left him to care for his 2 young boys. Now, the boys are like 12 and 6. And little Miko Hughes plays the 6-year-old. Robert J. Steinmiller plays the 12-year-old. And he's got a girl that he likes, played by a young girl called Reese Witherspoon, who went on to have quite a career, even though Steinmiller didn't. But there's a couple of things about this movie that really, really get to me. For one thing, I'm a sucker for a coming-of-age story. And this movie is entirely from the point of view, except for scenes he's not in, entirely in the point of view from the boy. And it's all of the angst and frustration and everything that he's going through. He's 12. He's just lost his mother. His father is unstable and basically a drunk, and he can't trust his father to take care of him and his brother and protect them. He's got a bad guy, Gary Sinise, who it turns out to be a really, really bad guy. He's trying to protect his little brother, and his little brother disappears. And apparently a victim of a kidnapping. I mean, this kid's world falls apart. And at the same time, his grandparents, who he really doesn't like, are trying to take him away from Danny DeVito. The one thing he's got, his father. And it's just heartbreaking in so many ways. But it's poignant. It's beautiful. It's got those tender moments. It's got the first kiss with Reese Witherspoon. So it's all balanced out and everything. But it's about overcoming trauma. This boy has to learn to deal with the fact that his world is not what he wants it to be, and he's hurting badly. And he's got to figure some things out. And now, on top of all of that, he's having trouble remembering things about his mother because of the trauma. And he feels like he's losing her a second time. It's just poignant and heartbreaking. And many times I've had discussions with people about great child actors, and there have been some phenomenal child actors throughout the film history. And this one comes down to me as the best child acting performance I have ever seen. If you don't feel what this kid's doing, and it never does it seem like he's acting. If you don't feel like everything that he's going through, then you got no empathy left. Jack the Bear, directed by Danny DeVito. If you like a good, intense coming-of-age story with some deep emotion, Jack the Bear.
All right. I've seen a part of that movie. It was some time ago. I don't think I saw the whole thing. That's one I'll have to check out. We do have another caller. You want to take a call?
Always.
All right. Hello, caller. You're on the air. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Brooke. Merry Christmas. Calling from the sunny state of Arizona.
Hey, Brooke.
Welcome to the show.
Hey,
Brooke.
how you doing,
my cousin Brooke.
Hey, I got to tell you, man, this has got to be the coolest subject ever. I mean, I was thinking I'd listen and see what's going on, but oh my God, all the memories, all these movies, there's just too much to really like. And you just mentioned somebody, Reese Witherspoon. And she was actually in a movie a long, long time ago with Kiefer Sutherland. And she was, and it was kind of like the big bad, or grandmother's big bad wolf. I'm trying to look it up now.
Yeah, Red Riding Hood.
The Freeway. The Freeway.
Yeah.
Or Freeway. Yeah.
Freeway. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, she. It was a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, a modern version. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That was when you mentioned that, I was like, wow, that's a really cool story. But that was the first time I saw it, and I was like, whoa, got a crush instantly. Anyways. So listen, there's a couple movies that you guys brought this up. Oh my gosh, I was like, I could do a list forever. But the one that really stood out, one night I got home and it was really late, and I just kind of flicked on HBO, and this movie came on. It was called Let Me In, and it's a movie about a young gal, and you probably heard of her. It's Chloe Grace. I can't remember her last name. Is it Moretz?
Moretz.
Yeah. Moretz, yeah.
She's
an
and
awesome
Cody McPhee plays the boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we know because it's on both our lists.
Yes. I have to tell you, though, I like that movie so much that I did some research on there, and it actually is derived from a Swedish movie called Let the Right One In. And that movie is actually a little bit darker. Yeah.
But it was a shot-for-shot remake. Every shot in that movie was copied from the other one. It's in English and just a little bit darker.
I've got both.
Yeah, I think the cinematography was a little darker on that one.
Yeah.
I thought it was the right one. You know, the Swedish version. Usually the European ones, they've got a really cool stylistic way of doing stuff, and sometimes it's hard to be used to because we're used to the colorful stuff blowing up stuff in America, and then Europe is kind of like a weird darkness I liked about it. So, but those are my two movies. I can't believe you guys both got them on your list. But I had one more I wanted to mention this one because this one was really good, and it's a gangster movie, and I think Beem will like this one. But you mentioned the guy earlier, Ethan Hawke. And he's actually, I never was a really, huge fan. I've seen him in a lot of stuff, and I thought he was really good. But I actually saw him in, it's called Brooklyn's Finest. And he just did such a fantastic job. And I don't even think he's got a starring role, and it's just kind of a side role where he's a police officer, and he's got a big family, and he's not making enough money, and they're going to do this huge drug raid. It's like a big drug operation.
Yeah,
and
I saw
Richard Gere's in it.
That.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a really fantastic movie.
I remember that.
And
one.
Ethan Hawke was different in that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
As an adult actor now, he's doing a good job picking his roles. When he, opposite Denzel Washington in Training Day, if you weren't a believer in him, you would be after that movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, I think those. He's done a lot of really good stuff, but I just think that he's one of those unsung heroes there that you don't really get to see, in a lot of roles. But you're right, as he gets older, he gets better. But I got one other one is American Beauty. You guys nailed it. That movie is so fantastic. The soundtrack in that is awesome.
Oh, love it.
The director. I mean, you mentioned him. I can't remember his name, but I love that style. It was just. Wow, it was just like he really brought out every character in there. Because you really don't no one person stands out. I mean, Kevin Spacey obviously does because he was, I think he won
he was
Best Supporting Actress.
Everybody had their own story in there,
Yeah,
and
but it was cool because everybody did such a good job.
All right.
What did you think about that? Did you think that?
What's that?
What?
I was going to ask you, that director that did that movie, American Beauty. Was that one of his better movies, or does he have other stuff that I should?
Well, he also did. He every one of his movies is great. A Road to Perdition was my number one on my list, and that's a Sam Mendes movie.
You mentioned that, and I remember watching parts of that. I got to go back and look at it because as you told the story about it, I kind of got interested. I was like, man,
good.
I really got to go watch that. I guess that was a pretty good movie. You sold me.
Turning people on to new movies. But we got to move along because we got a whole bunch more to go through.
Thanks for calling, Brooke.
Yeah,
all right, guys. Calling, Merry Christmas. Take care.
Brooke,
bye,
everybody. Bye. All right. So
what do you got
my
next?
turn, right?
Yep.
My next one is a comedy. I saw this at the theater way back in 1982 when it came out, and then I had to go and see it again. This is one of those few movies that I paid to see more than once at the theaters. And it's Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It came out, like I said, it came out in 1982. The tagline is, a group of Southern California high school students are enjoying their most important subject, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. because that's what the 80s was all about, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was a good time. It was a fun time. This movie had a lot of stars that were in their early stages that were just starting to come up. You had Sean Penn, Eric Stoltz, Jennifer Jason Leigh, C.B. Cates, Judge Reinhold, what's his name? Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage, now in the original version of this movie, most of his stuff was cut out, so he's got no lines and he's just kind of in the background. He was acting under his real name back then, which is Nicholas Coppola. In case you don't know, Nicolas Cage is Nicholas Coppola. He's the nephew of Francis Ford Coppola. He's the cousin of Sophia Coppola, and he's the nephew of Talia Shire. Yo, Adrian! And all of these people, they were this is one of their first big movies that they were on together, and this crew, there's so many of them that went on to bigger, better things. There's a couple of Oscars in there, an Oscar nomination in there. Funny. It's a nice time capsule of the 80s. Just a good time romp. Great soundtrack. If you're into 80s rock, hard rock, and even pop, just a great soundtrack. Love that movie. Still to this day, I can sit in front of that movie and talk the lines right along with the cast.
Yeah. I confess I was never quite as enamored of that. If I was looking at comedies in that era, I'm looking at Animal House and some of the others that I thought were better.
Animal House is 70s. Animal House is 70s. Animal House, that's one of my top all-time favorite comedies.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. The next one on my list is a remake of the movie Death Takes a Holiday. It was directed by Martin Brest, starring Brad Pitt, Claire Forlani, Anthony Hopkins, and a slew of other great actors like Marsha Gray Harden, and it's called Meet Joe Black. Here's the tagline. Update of Death Takes a Holiday. Death, who takes the form of a young man, asks a media mogul to act as a guide to teach him about life on Earth. And in the process, he falls in love with the guide's daughter. Man, this movie is brilliant, and I thought it was 10 steps above even the really good Death Takes a Holiday movie. It's one of those where the remake, I thought, actually just eclipsed the original. But everything about it, the story is intense. It's poignant. It's full of meaning. There's incredible scenes where, like, Brad Pitt's in the hospital with an old Jamaican woman who knows she's dying, and she recognizes him. And he talks to her in her way and assures her it's going to be okay and all that kind of stuff. And he's like a child who delights in peanut butter. Who knew, But at the same time, he gets very deeply, intensely into the lives of these people and what their motives are and how they live and what it is about humanity that makes them want to cling to life so much. This is death. He never quite understood this, and now it's time. And then, of course, falling in love changes it all. But now Claire Forlani was never really considered a very great actress. She was in some good movies like Mallrats, for example, and stood out in that one. But in this movie, I think in a movie of great actors, she steps up even above the rest of them in some of her scenes. Like there's one scene that's getting kind of close to the end where Brad Pitt is finally going to tell her who he is. And he's kind of like holding on to her, and he looks at her and he says, I have something to tell her. And for like the next 45 minutes, there is no dialogue. She looks at him, and you can see in her face the subtext, the subscript of her figuring everything out and her reactions, her emotional reactions to it. And then she looks at him again and sees him differently, and then she has to react to that. And, at the end of that, it's kind of like you see in her face that she does understand. But she answers him, I know who you are. You're Joe Black. And I mean, scenes like that, I'll sit there and zoom it back, watch that scene again, zoom it back, watch that scene again. I'll watch a scene like that a dozen times before I can even move on. And that movie is full of those scenes. Meet Joe Black.
Yeah, now I want to clarify something here. You said for the next 45 minutes there's no dialogue. I think you meant 45
seconds. Yeah.
Don't worry, people. It's not 45 minutes of nobody talking. But I want to say this about that movie, the setup. The character of Brad Pitt is a live, living guy at the beginning. And Death, who takes people, he's trying to figure out why people are so scared to go with him. Why do they want to leave life stuff behind? So what he does is he has Brad Pitt step in front of a bus, gets whacked, and then he inhabits the body, and he goes around and trying to, this is where he discovers he loves peanut butter. But here's the cool thing about that movie and about Brad Pitt, which showed me that I knew Brad Pitt was a good actor, but this guy was brilliant in this role because when he was the living, breathing guy, the human being, he comes into this little restaurant, he comes up to the counter and he's ordering something. There's a twinkle in his eye. There's a brightness in his eye. He's alive and full of life. When he gets hit by the bus and death inhabits his body and he's moving around his death, that twinkle, that glimmer is gone from his eyes. And that takes a heck of an actor to pull that off, that you can tell now there's something different from that character from the first time you saw him on screen. So that was just a great choice there, great choice. Now, my next one is one that Dr. Helen mentioned, and that's To Kill a Mockingbird, 1962. Atticus Finch, a widowed lawyer in Depression-era Alabama, defends a black man against an undeserved rape charge and his children against prejudice. Now, for me, this is not only a perfect film, it was a perfect book. There's a handful of those that I can say are perfect, and I don't try to get into that too much, but this one stood out to me as perfect. It was shot at a time when color film was certainly available, and yet they shot it in black and white, which gave it this beautiful, grainy texture to it. I'm sure most people know the story, so I'm not going to go into that, and we can move along to the next one. But it's just a wonderful story. If you haven't seen it, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah. Over on Twitter, you want to read Marlena while I cough?
Yeah. Okay, over on Twitter, Marlena Smith says, method actors amaze me. I've read articles where the actors will stay away from family and friends while they're filming so they can remain in character. Yes, there's a lot of them that are like that. Sean Penn's another one, stays in character. I don't know if he stays away from family. I know Daniel Day-Lewis goes home to his wife, but he goes home as, whatever character he's playing. I need some salt for the potatoes here. Whatever. He gets to do that. I can imagine what it was like when he was Lincoln, coming home to have an Abraham Lincoln at the dinner table. But thank you for that comment as well, Marlena.
Yeah.
These method actors, they're just amazing how they dive into it, how they become the characters.
And Marlena also added another one. Go ahead.
Oh, all right. She said, horror films are also on the top of my list. I haven't seen Let Me In, which surprises me. There's nothing quite like the old films like Halloween and Friday the 13th. I tend to favor those. Now, the ones based on the true stories. I agree with you. If you haven't seen Let Me In, I suggest you see Let Me In, and then check out Let the Right One In, the Swedish version.
We're gonna talk. We'll talk about that one a little more when we get to it on our list too.
Yeah. So you're gonna definitely want to check those out. All right. So next up for you, Stephen.
I just did Meet Joe Black.
Oh no, I just did To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay. That was on your list. I thought you were just covering. All right. Well, then my next one, almost kind of like in the theme of American Beauty in a lot of ways, is a Woody Allen movie. Now, Woody Allen did great comedies, and then he did great serious movies, and I mean, he's just done a lot of he's done musicals, he's done a lot of cool stuff. And most people name like Mighty Aphrodite or Annie Hall, which won the Best Picture Oscar, or, some of those others, Hannah and Her Sisters, which I believe won a lot of awards. My favorite Woody Allen movies are Stardust Memories, which is about what does it mean to be a director who makes movies. But even better than that, the one that made my list is his movie called Manhattan. And it is one of the most cinematographically gorgeous movies ever made. It's like a love letter to New York City. And it's in the letterbox format. And he shoots entire scenes with static cameras where things are happening in the left part of the picture, and then they move across the picture to the right. And the lighting is beautiful. Everything about it is just gorgeous. But it stars Woody Allen. Diane Keaton is also in it, his Annie Hall co-star, and young Mariel Hemingway playing a 17-year-old who moves in with Woody Allen and lives with him for a while. And again, this kind of touches into some skeezy territory, especially when you consider that Woody Allen got a little bit caught up in some what I think is false scandal, but he got caught up in some attitude there. But Manhattan is ultimately a love story, and it's the story about you can be with the person everybody thinks you should be with, or you can be the person who really loves you. And in this case, it was Mariel, and he took a lot of heat for having her close to him. and had to deal with it. And by the end of the movie, they have figured out a lot of very important things. And it's just a wonderful story, very heartfelt, great writing, great acting. Woody Allen is serious, but he's also Woody Allen. He's got some funny little bits in there here and there that make it kind of break the tension. Mariel Hemingway acquitted herself nicely. Everybody was looking at her sister Margot Hemingway before that. They started paying attention to Mariel after this. Yeah. And it's got a wonderful ending, but that's one of the few movies that I could watch with the sound off and just watch the cinematography and just be enthralled by it, especially with the Gershwin score. Ooh.
Yeah, I saw that movie a few times. That's definitely a good one. My favorite Woody Allen movie is Blue Jasmine, the more recent one. He's not in front of the camera in this one, but man, the dude can direct. Yeah, I know he's got his, off-screen nonsense, but the guy can direct, and Cate Blanchett was just brilliant in Blue Jasmine.
I agree.
Andrew Dice Clay, the old 90s comedian that, you wouldn't figure was a great actor, this dude turned in a brilliant performance. And I was looking forward to seeing him in some more serious roles, and that never really panned out. But this guy was just fantastic in that movie. So there's another one, Woody Allen films,
Yeah.
All right. My next one is a Oscar winner going back to 1982, Sophie's Choice. Sophie's Choice. Sophie is a survivor of Nazi concentration camps who has found a reason to live with Nathan, a sparkling, if unsteady, American Jew obsessed with the Holocaust. Now, Meryl Streep won her second Oscar. This was her first Best Actress Oscar. A couple years before that, in Kramer versus Kramer, she won Best Supporting Actress. And she since then playing Margaret Thatcher, won a third Oscar, but she's been nominated, I believe, 21 times. It might even be 22. This is hands down the greatest actor, man or woman, ever. I don't care for her as a person because she wants to open her mouth and get all political all the time, and that just turns me off. Shut up and act. Not interested in your thoughts on that stuff, but as an actress, man, brilliant. You can name, think about that. 22 Oscar nominations. That's more than 2 decades worth of solid, and how many films that she made that were really good that didn't get the nominations as well. But anyway, this movie, what struck me on this is like Daniel Day-Lewis, she gets into the character. For Sophie's Choice, she has this accent down, and she's the queen of accents. But not only that, she learned Polish and German for this role. So when she's speaking Polish, because she's a Polish Jew, but was in the Nazi concentration camp, so she had to learn to speak the German for the scenes where she was in the camp. And the whole title itself, it's heartbreaking, Sophie's Choice. And when you're watching the movie and you're not sure what it is because she's got these 2 men in her life, and you're thinking, well, must be where the choice is coming from. She's got to choose between these 2 men. And the character of Nathan, that's what's his name? He's married to Phoebe Cates. Richard.
I know who you mean, but I'm not thinking of it.
But anyway, you're thinking that's the choice, and then the thing that it's the stunner. That scene where she actually has to make this choice, and it's not the 2 men in her life. This is a flashback to where she's in the camp, and the choice she has to make ripped as a young man back in the day. Watching this ripped my heart out.
Kevin Kline.
Kevin Kline.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm saying Richard. That's why it threw me, because I'm thinking Richard something. Kevin Kline, he plays Nathan, and then there's another guy. And there, like I said, it's set up to where you think that that's the choice, and it's not. And the choice is, it's heartbreaking. It's one of those, oh my gosh. And the way they set the scene up, I wish I could say more, because the way they set the scene up, somebody in the scene was not acting, and something was going on to where it horrified this person, and you can see that in the reaction. And I'll leave it at that. But if you haven't seen Sophie's Choice, man, it's a beautiful, tragic film.
Yeah. Okay, my next one it stars Vanessa Redgrave, who is telling a story from her life. and she's a famous writer now. And at the end of her life, she's on a talk show being interviewed, and she's talking about this. And her, as a girl, is played by Saoirse Ronan. Did I say that right, Beem? Saoirse?
No, Saoirse Ronan.
Saoirse Ronan.
Every time it's an Irish girl.
Yeah, it's a weird spelling, and every time I look at it, I see something different. But anyway, it stars Keira Knightley and James McAvoy as the main characters in the flashback throughout the story. Here's the tagline. 13-year-old fledgling writer Brianni Tallis irrevocably changes the course of several lives when she accuses her older sister's lover of a crime he did not commit. Again, a beautiful movie, a fantastic, phenomenal story. This movie has a scene in it that's 23 or 20, I think it's 26 minutes long. That's a single shot with a handheld camera. And it's when they're traveling, they're trying to escape, and, wars raging all around them. And just as they finally get to the seashore where the beach is, where the armies are and troops and all this stuff's happening, the camera focuses on James McAvoy and then follows him for the next 26 minutes without ever cutting one time. And I'm talking epic. There's planes flying overhead, bombs being dropped, explosions, entire platoons of troops walking, marching through the scenes and stuff. And it's choreographed.
You want to drop the name of the movie in here since you haven't mentioned it yet?
I'm going to. Atonement.
It's on my list too. So.
And it's a hint. It's a hint. And I got to tell you, this is, of all of these movies, probably my favorite ending of a movie. And I wish I could say more about it, but I can't. Except that the word atonement has a meaning here. And go see that movie, Atonement.
Yeah, this is This is a movie about somebody truly seeking redemption, and unfortunately, it might be too late for them.
But I'm going to
leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at that. But here, I'll throw this in since you covered most of the main things. This movie's on my list too. So, Saoirse Ronan. It's an Irish name, and you're right. It's got all these letters, and you're looking at it and think, how the hell does that spell Saoirse? She was on years ago. She was on with Jay Leno when Jay Leno used to do the Tonight Show, and he asked her the same thing, and she said it's Irish. She said basically what my parents did was they grabbed a bunch of letters and threw them on the floor and said, let's call it Saoirse, and that's what we got out of it. But she's a brilliant actress. I mean, she's still young. I believe
The Lovely Bones.
The Lovely Bones.
Yeah.
She did Brooklyn. Just another brilliant, heartbreaking movie. She's done several of them. She was in a movie called Hannah, and that's kind of an action film. And but she's not a typical action. Not a typical action film. But I mean, she's got a handful of Oscar nominations already, and I don't even think she's 30 yet, or she's closing in on 30, or she might be just after.
We're closing in on our limits here. What do you got next?
Yeah. So my next one is, I believe it's also on yours, or maybe not. House of Sand and Fog. This
not on mine yet.
Okay, 2003. An abandoned wife is evicted from her house and starts a tragic conflict with her house's new owners. Ben Kingsley was nominated for Best Actor for this. Jennifer Connelly, I was a fan of hers. I thought she was a good actress. And then I saw this, and I thought she's a great actress. This is a psychological drama. It starts with she's an alcoholic. Her husband abandons her. The county seizes her home and auctions it off mistakenly. She owed business taxes, back taxes, not property taxes, and they ended up taking the home instead of the business. So they auctioned her home off. Now she's trying to get the home back, and the character that Ben Kingsley plays, he's a former Iranian general who escaped after the fall of the Shah in the mid-'70s, and he's restarted his life here in America, and he's got a wife and a son, and he agrees finally to let her have the house back, but at his price, because since he bought the house, he's put tens of thousands of dollars into renovations, and he wants his money back. And it just escalates, and I can't go on and tell you more, but there's a really heartbreaking scene in this one as well. And these are stories. These are finely written stories, so it's one worth checking out.
Yeah, that one could have been on my list. I just overlooked it. There's so many that we overlooked trying to put these together. You know, if we'd had long time to think, we could have just really, really worked them. But my next one is by one of my all-time favorite writers, Daniel Woodrell. He's an Ozark writer who puts out novels and short stories, and every word this man written is lyrically beautiful with point of view that's right in the characters' heads, and it's just exquisite. But two of his novels have been made into movies, and they're both excellent. One is Tomato Red, which I highly recommend, and then there's the one that made my list, Winter's Bone. And this one
made my list too.
Yeah, this one put young Jennifer Lawrence on the map because she plays the main character. Also, John Hawkes played her Uncle Teardrop, and I believe he won the Oscar for that. And I'm going to throw out a rare shout-out for a supporting actor, and that's Dale Dickey is in this movie. And I know Beem and I are both fans of Dale Dickey. She is so good. Brilliant. She never gets her name in the credits, but she's in hundreds of movies, it seems, and every time I see her, I'm impressed with her. So, Dale Dickey, here's your shout-out for the night. Here's the tagline. An unflinching Ozark mountain girl hacks through dangerous social terrain as she hunts down her drug-dealing father while trying to keep her family intact. This is basically a teenage girl. She's 18, 19, I think, something like that. She's got a little brother and a little sister she takes care of, and then her mother's got mental illness and really is not very functioning. So she's trying to take care of all these people, and her father's drug-dealing Ozark kind of a guy who's in and out of jail or whatever, and he gets in serious trouble and puts up the house and property as his bail bond. Well, he has crossed some people and has disappeared, and, the presumption is he's probably dead. She's got to either find him or prove he's dead, or she's going to lose everything. And then she's got, a mother and two little kids to take care of and no place to live. And, boy, if you don't feel just the heartbreak of what she's having to deal with and the bravery of this girl to go deal with these Ozark clans and the kind of culture and traditions and code of ethics that these people have. It's just a phenomenal movie. Great cinematography. Everything about it is good. Great soundtrack. Winter's Bone, Daniel Woodrell's novel, made into a great movie.
Yeah, that's on my list too. Now, Dale Dickey, talking about Dale Dickey, if you're a fan of the TV series Breaking Bad, she did an episode of that. She did a few episodes of Justified, but everything she's in, she's brilliant. I mean, brilliant. She's got this kind of face that, she's going to play the rough kind of characters. It's just, the way her face looks. But Daniel Woodrow is one of my favorite authors. This guy's a master at dialogue. Like you wouldn't believe. It's real. He's an Ozark guy. He's from the Ozarks, so he knows how they talk, and just fantastic. Now, my next one is my one and only on this list, foreign film, and it's a Lasse Hallström film. Lasse Hallström is a brilliant director, and
one of my favorites.
He shows up helming another movie on my list and on Steven's list as well. But My Life as a Dog was filmed in his native Sweden. It's in Swedish. It's 1985. It's a boy and his brother don't get along well. In order to let their ill mother rest, they're separated and sent each one to their relatives. And then that's where they focus mostly on the one boy. And he meets some new friends there. And it's a coming-of-age story, and it's set in the 1950s. And this is Ingmar Johansson was the boxer back then, and he ended up beating I'm forgetting who he beat for the one of the boxing titles back in the 50s. I'm not sure if it was heavyweight or middleweight. It might have been middleweight, but I can't remember. But anyway, that's kind of the rallying point for in a couple of the scenes, because Ingmar Johansson was a Swedish boxer, but you get to see that this boy, he lives inside of his head. And the whole idea, My Life as a Dog, how he could make his mentally ill mother laugh was he'd get on the floor and he'd bark and he'd be the family dog. And she got a laugh out of it, and that was the only time that he would ever see her laugh. But there's so much more to this movie, and we're running out of time, so I'm going to cut this one short. But if you've never seen My Life as a Dog, it is worth checking out.
And then go ahead and look up Lasse Hallström as a director, too, and you'll be surprised at his long list of great movies.
He directs in English, too. So.
Yeah, in both languages. All right, my next one is a very small, obscure little kind of a movie that went on to win the Best Picture Oscar that year, much to many people's surprise. But I remember I took a lady to see it, and we sat there, and we were just enthralled by this thing. And when the movie ended, we didn't get up. Neither of us did. We just sat there for a minute, and finally I turned to her and I said, "That's the Best Picture Oscar for this year." And she said, "You're right." And nobody we ever talked to after that ever heard of the movie until Oscar time came. It's called Moonlight, and it stars Mahershala Ali, who is one of my favorite actors now, and Naomi Harris.
He's a great actor.
Now, here's the tagline. The film presents 3 stages in the life of the main character, his childhood, adolescence, and early adult life. It explores the difficulties he faces with his sexuality and identity, including the physical and emotional abuse he endures growing up. Now, this was written and directed by Barry Jenkins, who grew up in the projects in South Miami and in an all-black area, and basically was living among drug dealers and pimps and crackheads and things like that. This was just kind of a bad area. So he tells the story of this boy growing, from, I think he's like 9 years old at the beginning until he's grown. And the authenticity of the performances blew me away. Naomi Harris plays his crackhead mother, and I swear every time I watch this movie, I study her face and look for Naomi Harris, and she's not there. It's this crackhead. And
a good actor.
And she's real, and it's just achingly authentic. But then Mahershala Ali, this guy's a Shakespearean-trained actor. I mean, he starred in The Green Book, as this sophisticated concert pianist or whatever. But in this one, he's the street corner drug dealer who's working the young black boys to go out there and sell crack to cars that pull up. And he talks the talk. He walks the walk. He is so authentic that this is the first time I noticed this actor, and I thought that's the kind of person he was. And then I thought, well, that guy was good. What else has he been in? I went and watched something else, and it's like it was a different guy. And everything I've seen him in now, he's been a different guy. So for performances, Moonlight is phenomenal. The story is a coming-of-age story, is really good. It's intense. It's authentic. Decent little soundtrack, but stylish and just a great film. So Moonlight, directed by Barry Jenkins.
All right. I haven't seen that one yet, but definitely a Mahershala Ali fan. The Green Book was a great film that he was in. Now, my next one is a 1962 film. It's called The Days of Wine and Roses. Seen this movie a few times. An alcoholic marries a young woman and systematically addicts her to booze so that they can share his passion together. It's directed by Blake Edwards. Just a great movie. This was Jack Lemmon and Lee Remick, and it was shot in '62 and then was shot in black and white again because that adds to the darkness of the film, especially when they're both in their throes of alcoholism and their lives start to unravel, and he gets his back on track, but she's still struggling with it, and the ending is it's a sad thing, but it's reality. It's how unfortunately some of these things end up ending. But The Days of Wine and Roses, if you haven't seen it, that's one that pops up on Turner Classic Movies quite a bit. I've got it on DVD. I saw it here probably 3 months ago. Again, just throwing on the DVD one night. There's nothing else on, so let's watch that.
What stood out to me on that is the chemistry between Jack Lemmon and Lee Remick is just flawless. Yeah. I mean, they are so on. Yeah. Lemmon was always good at chemistry with people, like when he worked with Mathau and others. Yeah. So that stood out to me about that movie. Okay, my next one, we're down to probably just one or two each left here, is one. Now I want to preface this by saying we did not show each other our lists. In fact, we were kind of working on these at the last second. I'm trying to type with a broken hands, and we didn't show them. But we've talked about movies enough that I have a pretty good idea what he would pick, and he probably does me too. I think this one's probably on his list, Mystic River.
Yep.
Is it?
Uh-huh.
Yep. It's based on the Dennis Lehane book. It was directed by Clint Eastwood, who emerged as one hell of a director in the last part of his career. And it stars Sean Penn, Tim Robbins, Kevin Bacon, and Marcia Gay Harden. Here's the tagline. The lives of 3 men who were childhood friends are shattered when one of them has a family tragedy. Now, that doesn't mention the setup. These 3 characters the movie starts when they're boys, and they're playing out in the street, and a car pulls up, and this guy, pretends to be an important person and tells one of the boys, your mom's hurt, we got to get you home or whatever, and takes him. And he escapes from where he's being held like 5 days later, I think it is, after suffering some serious abuse. So he comes home, perceived or regarded by the entire neighborhood as that damaged boy, that boy that had things done to him and stuff. And now these three boys are best friends, but they grow up and they become Sean Penn, and then Tim Robbins and Kevin Bacon is the cop, and it's Sean Penn's daughter is murdered. And that's what the main impetus of the story is. Kevin Bacon is the cop who's investigating it, and the third friend, Tim Robbins, who was the damaged boy, so to speak, is the one who becomes the primary suspect. And then this turns into a thriller that is intense with scenes that are emotional. Wow.
Yes, that's on my list as well. Just a brilliant performance by everybody involved. And you're right, Clint Eastwood, I mean, he was always a good director. He directed Outlaw Josie Wales way back when in High Plains Drifter and some of those movies. But in the later parts of his career, wow, he just, I mean, he understood, and still to this day, when I was down in Alabama visiting you here in September, we saw Clint's latest movie. He still makes good movies.
Yep.
Now, we're down to about 6 minutes, 4 minutes, actually 4 minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes with the tag.
Well, I got 4 here. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and just, my next one is The Others. This is a
but which version?
Story. Here's the tag. A woman who lives in her darkened old family house with her 2 photosensitive children becomes convinced that the home is haunted, and boy, is it ever. I will just tell you, the best way to see this is to see it for the first time, because after you see it for the first time, you know what's coming at the end, and but I wish there was a way you could get into a machine and go back and unsee it and then see it again for the first time over and over again, because that ending will be like, what? Holy crap.
On the other hand, you get movies, in many ways, this is like The Sixth Sense, in that when you find out the twist, you can go back and watch it again and then look for the clues for the twist and all that, too.
Yes, you can do that. But that shock at the end was just, I mean, wow. I was watching it lying down, and I sat up. What?
But which one are you talking about, the original or the remake with Nicole Kidman?
I'm talking about the Nicole Kidman one.
Okay. Yeah, because the original is highly regarded too. That was, I don't recall ever seeing it.
I just know this one, and this was written by the director. So I don't know about any original one, but that's right there. The Nicole Kidman one is just brilliant. 2001.
Okay, see if I can squeeze in another one here. This one I suspect might be on Beam's list, or at least is also Rand list, and it also won the Best Picture Oscar the year that it was up, and that's called Crash. Tagline is, Los Angeles citizens with vastly separate lives collide in interweaving stories of race, loss, and redemption. And this one's just a slew of movie stars with, some of the scenes like with Matt, what's Matt's name?
Matt Dillon.
Matt Dillon and Tandy Newton, like where he's the cop, the racist cop, and she needs him to save his life. And
Terrence Howard.
Yeah, wow.
Sandra Bullock. I mean, it's an ensemble cast, brilliant. You got different stories going on, and everybody's interconnected, and you see everybody. I don't care who you are or what your ethnicity is. Everybody's got a prejudice about them, and this shows you that even the worst of the worst can overcome these things. There's human beings underneath those prejudices as well, and we need to see more of that in today's time because everybody seems to be eating.
And, it's hard to name the standout performances because every scene is a standout performance, like Terrence Howard, or Tandy Newton when she's trapped in the car. But one that I always find interesting is Ludacris, the famous rapper, acting under his name Chris Bridges. He is fantastic in this movie.
He's brilliant in that movie. Yeah, and he was good in Hustle and Flow as well. All right, well, we're down to the last 45 seconds. So
thanks everybody for participating, and we'll probably do a sequel. We'll do a sequel here, and thanks for tuning in.
Yes, we will be off next week. It will be a repeat show, so tune in for that one next week. And
that's David Carroll.
That's David Carroll.
Right. Hello, Chattanooga. Our best-selling book of the year.
We want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, and have fun. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show.
You've been a part of Voice of Indie, a production of Fresh Ink Group. Spread the word, support our guests, then find us at freshinkgroup.com and be sure to hashtag Fresh Ink Group.